Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I am going to go over poisoned, burned, confused, paralyzed, any kind of special condition from the Pokemon trading card game. So let's get right into it. So first off, let's go with sleep. And since Jirachi's ability automatically puts him to sleep, we are going to go with that. So Stellar Wish, it says look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put one of them into your hand if it's a trainer card, and this Pokemon is asleep. So see, now that this Pokemon is asleep like this, you can no longer, when they are asleep, you can no longer attack or retreat. That is manually. So I cannot discard an energy card from this Pokemon. If this was attached like this, I cannot discard this to manually retreat because that Pokemon is in fact asleep. Now there are items such as escape boards and switches, so you could play a switch like this and that would allow you to retreat into something else, whatever it may be. Now remember, whenever Pokemon goes from the active spot onto the bench, anytime it goes back to the bench, it loses all special conditions. So if it's asleep, poisoned, paralyzed, whatever, the switch would get you out of that, and in some cases prevent you from taking damage. So that is pretty much sleep. You cannot retreat, you cannot attack in between turns. Say you pass with a Jirachi in the active and he's asleep, you roll a coin. If heads, then you get to wake up. So if I was to flip a coin here, let's say this is a coin, if heads, I would wake up. Or if I rolled evens with the dice, I would wake up. If it's tails, then you obviously stay asleep. So now moving on to the next one, let's just put Victini up here. Let's say you got attacked by your opponent's Pokemon and they poison you. What you would do is you would get your little poison counter here, place it on, and then after their attack is done, say they did 30 damage plus poison in between turns. So when that turn is coming to you, it's not your turn yet, but it's almost your turn. Poison takes effect, and you ticket up 1 damage counter. Poison does 1 damage counter in between turns for as long as that Pokemon is poisoned. So let's say now I do my stuff and I attack, and the turn goes back to my opponent. I would take 1 more damage counter for that poison. So now let's say we want to get out of poison. We want to find a way to get rid of that. We can play a switch to switch out and put something else in the active that gets rid of poison. Now you would obviously still keep the damage counters, you would not lose those, but you do get rid of poison because it's a special condition and going to the bench takes that away. Now if it's in the active and there are supporter cards and item cards like Mixed Herb or Pokemon Center Lady, that would allow you to just flat out remove the special condition from your Pokemon. Those cards work too. They work for poison, paralyzed, asleep, everything that is a special condition. But yeah, that's pretty much it for poison. In between turns, you take an extra damage counter, and that's the way it goes. So next up, we have burned. So burned is a little bit different in the way that it works. So your opponent attacks, let's just use the same scenario. Your opponent attacks, his attack does 30 damage plus burn. So what you would do is you would place the burn damage counter on it, and then whenever it comes to your turn, it's in between turns, you would automatically take 20 damage. So that ticks up to 50 damage counters because he did 30, and then with burn, he does 20 more. For the burn takes effect in between turns, and he did 20 more, so you would take 20 more damage counters. Rambling, I know, sorry. Taking 50 damage counters. Now the difference is, every time in between turns, you roll a dice, or you flip a coin. If heads, which this is tails, then that would go away. So if I'd have rolled a heads here, say a even, so as a number as a 4, then that would go away, and I would no longer take any burn. Now, since I didn't, I take the burn, I take the 50 damage, you automatically take the 20 damage. So now I attack, I do whatever, I pass turn, and I would immediately take 20 more damage for the burn. But then I would also get to roll again, and if it was heads, which it's not, then that burn would go away. So if it landed on 2, that burn would have gone away, and it'd be back to my opponent's turn. Now let's say my opponent attacked, blah, 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 in past turn, that would tick up another 20 damage, and then I would roll. It still tails, so burn stays there, if you get the point. So basically, the damage is guaranteed on the first attack. So if you do 30 plus burn, that's a guaranteed 50 damage. Then they roll. If that damage stays there, or if they roll a tails, then you when they pass turn, they will take 20 more damage unless they swap it or some way of getting rid of that extra burn damage, or that a special condition rather. Next up, we have confused. So confused when you get confused, there's a lot of attacks that do that. You turn your Pokemon upside down because he is in fact confused. Now, this doesn't like place damage counters in between turns like all the other special conditions. What it does is, let's use Victini here. Let's say I want to attack with Victini. I'm at the point where I need to, if I attack, I win the game. If I don't, I lose. But what Confuse does, it's just like in the video games, you have a chance of failing that attack. So what you do is you get your coin or your dice and you either roll or you flip, and if it's heads, you get to attack. If it's tails like it is there, you place 30 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So since I failed the roll here, I would have to place 30 damage counters, 3 damage counters, not 30, 3 damage counters on my Pokemon, and my turn would end, and my opponent would now have the turn to attack, do whatever he needs to do. If at the beginning of your next turn he is still confused, you would roll again. That time it's ahead. The attack goes through. You are, however, still confused. The special conditions does not go away unless you swap to the bench with a switch or something like that. So, yeah, confused is pretty good. But with switch and stuff like that around, it's pretty easy to get out of. So next up we have Paralyzed. So there is Pokemon that paralyze your Pokemon with attacks that paralyze your Pokemon. What we do with them is we turn our Pokemon to the right, the opposite way of sleep. So with Paralyzed, it's kind of like a sleep. You cannot attack and you cannot retreat. So let's say I have an energy on here, I wanted to manually retreat. I can't do that because I am in fact paralyzed. Now I also can't attack. So the only way to get out of Paralyzed is to play something like a switch or an escape board. A escape board allows you to retreat if you have, even if your Pokemon is asleep or paralyzed. So if I had this attached, I would still be able to retreat, paying that energy cost to get out of that. But either way, when it is paralyzed, it cannot attack and it cannot retreat. It is a permanent lock going on there. On top of that, whenever you pass turn, you automatically wake back up. So it only lasts for one turn, but while you're in that turn, if you cannot get out of it, you are stuck. You cannot attack, you cannot retreat, you cannot do anything to that Pokemon except for play something like a switch to get it out of the active mode. But since, obviously you may not have a switch, there's such thing as shock lock decks in Expanded, and I run up against one in Dallas. It's really hard to get out of. But anyways, that's pretty much it for the special conditions. There are 5 of them. You've got Fire, you've got Poison, Sleep, Paralyzed, and Confused. And that's pretty much what they all do during the game. If you want to be a surefire way to get out of them, play switches, play Pokemon Center later, play mixed herbs, stuff like that. Asleep and Paralyzed, I think, are one of the biggest ones. Burned might be pretty good right now, I'm not sure. But anyway, guys, that's it. If you like this kind of content, if you like the video, please like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.